On today's video, we're gonna dive into the fascinating world of peptides. When we learned about peptides, which have been around about 10 years now, it honestly was like a new playground for practitioners because we went from having no real options in this realm to having many. And what peptides are, so we'll start by just defining them. Peptides are short chains of amino acids. Amino acids are what make up proteins. So we get those from our diet. There are several that we have to get from our diet and a few that the body can make. But we get these amino acids and we string them together and produce proteins. So proteins are strings of amino acid that are 40 or more in a row. They make a protein that goes on and does many things in the body. If it is less than 40, so those smaller strings of amino acids, that is the definition of peptide. So it's really a pretty easy definition, but where the magic comes in is that the strings of amino acids do different things. So the point of them and what we're using them for is to reset a lot of the internal signaling. So we find over time that our cells just stop communicating the way they're supposed to, whether it is age or toxin exposure or chronic stress or many things we may just not even understand yet. Our body's communication it becomes faulty, and that's where peptides can come to the rescue. So they come in, they act as a cell-to-cell communicator, and the idea is that they're going to reset, kind of remind your cells about what they're supposed to do. So when we prescribe, as a general rule, when we prescribe peptides, we're going to want to use them in a cyclical fashion. So what that means is that we may do it for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on the peptide, and then give the body a break. Because when we give those breaks, a lot of times our cells respond to differences in whether it's electrical charge or neurotransmitter communication or what's happening at the cell level with peptides talking to the cell. They do better when they don't see the same thing chronically. This is why a lot of times certain medications will work for a while and then they stop working. Classic example is antidepressants. People will typically do great and then over time have to increase the dose because it stops working. So in that fashion, what we do with the peptide is we may give it to you, say, hey cell, remember you were supposed to talk this way, retrain the cell on what it's supposed to do, then take that break, let that difference come back to where the cell can sense it, and then it can pick up, oh yeah, remember we're supposed to trigger that response. So some people may only need to do one round of specific peptides to get the body working better, and they might not need it again, or maybe they need it once a year. So that's the concept behind the world of peptides. And to go into just a few of them, I picked a couple that are really good for longevity. One of them is more topical and skin-based, which is called GHKCU. And by the way, with peptides, one annoying thing is a lot of times they're just a bunch of numbers and letters, which is confusing. And that's just the way they've been named. So if you see a bunch of letters and numbers, it's probably a peptide. Find out what it's good for. GHKCU, copper peptides, you'll hear about those in a lot of skincare products now. But the pure GHKCU, if you get it prescribed as a peptide, can be given topically in a cream. It can be injectable. It can even be done in a troche. And that's another thing I'll say. Actually, we'll step out of the specific peptides again for a second. Let's just talk about how peptides are prescribed. First of all, more and more, unfortunately, they are being blocked. There are reasons, agendas, why. So it is getting harder to get peptides. My hope is that that will loosen up again, and you want to keep your voice very active. Make sure that if you get a chance to support your local compounding pharmacy. If you see practitioners asking for support for peptide prescriptions, sign petitions. You want to stay active with supporting our access to these compounds because they're incredible. Remember, they give your body back the messaging, the sovereignty, it's like a nudge to remind your body how it's supposed to work, how it's supposed to communicate, how our cells are supposed to talk to each other. So you want to make sure that we have access to these. So first off, making sure we have access. Typically they are compounded. You also want to be careful if you just order them online. You got to know the source because they may not be pure. They may have contaminants. You want to get it from somebody you know and trust. So a lot for me and our practice, we get it compounded from specific pharmacies that we have vetted their cleanliness, their capacity to stay with the highest compounding regulations and requirements. Then it can be given in several different ways. So like I said, GHKCU, which is for skin, can be done topically, but most peptides are anywhere from injectable, which is most often sub-Q, so like right under the skin. Some are nasal, especially the ones that are working in the brain. Some are oral, whether it's a capsule or a troche that you can dissolve that is supposed to go into your bloodstream. So there's lots of different ways that these can be given. So to go back to GHKCU, that one, we've seen people take it systemically if they've had a lot of problems with their skin, like whether it is very thin and bruising all the time, or other issues with just wanting the skin to be brighter and more resilient. You could try GHKCU. BPC 157, again, letters and numbers, one of our favorite peptides that we use in our clinic because that one is really great for a couple of different things. It works in general on inflammation, which everybody has. So everybody can benefit typically from this particular peptide. In the oral capsule form, it is great for your gut. So if you've done a lot of work on your gut, leaky gut work, and you still keep having reactions, you really may want to consider trying an oral version of BPC 157. And again, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, then take a break. BPC 157 can also be amazing for joints and tendons. So you want to use it if you have, let's say, persistent knee issues or ankle issues and you're trying to avoid other procedures, or if you're going through physical therapy, BPC 157, whether it's injected sub-Q right in the belly or whether you go somewhere and get it injected around the joint, can also be super helpful. We've seen it in people doing it around their spine, in people doing it around different joints, shoulders, knees, ankles, and pretty dramatic results. So again, one of our favorites at my clinic. There's also something called CJC and ipamorelin, and there's numbers with it as well, 1297, or sorry, 1295. CJC 1295, ipamorelin. That particular peptide boosts growth hormone. So we understand growth hormone is potentially helpful. It helps you look more youthful, make more lean muscle mass. But too much growth hormone or substituting or supplementing with growth hormone directly has problems, concerns over triggering of cancer cells and a lot of other issues. So historically, we won't prescribe that. Most people will not prescribe growth hormone. Some rare cases of like kids that actually are not growing, they will get growth hormone. But CJC 1295 and ipamorelin is a peptide that's supposed to help naturally secrete growth hormone. So in patients that are just trying to get more lean mass, who have maybe very low levels of IGF-1, which is a lab level that you can check on yourself, have your practitioner do it, for your ability to make growth hormone, taking this compound for, again, 30 days, 60 days. You don't want to stay on that. But taking it, remind the body, hey guys, we're supposed to be making growth hormone. Let it get back into that healthy pattern, can be a game changer in longevity, in muscle mass, and more. And then One more that we like a lot are the TB, thymosin beta it's called, which are immune-mediated peptides. So your immune system can get out of balance in a lot of cases. We know that everything from chronic viruses, vaccine reactions, and more, chronic stress, the immune system gets out of whack, then we're just a host for lots of different infectious issues to kind of stay prevalent. Using a peptide like TB1 and TB4 will really help get that back in balance. Again, harder to get your hands on this stuff. We had one that's sublingual, it's working great. So something to consider if your immune system is not responding. There are thymus peptides, which are also taken from thymus glands that are in more of a supplement form that you can get your hands on as well. So remember, the long-term implications, you don't ever want to stay on peptides beyond the 30, 60, 90 days. If you find it really helped and you take a break, you could always try to pulse it again. And make sure that you understand all the different ones that are out there. There are many more. There's one called dihexa we also like that can be taken as a capsule or nasal that helps you grow new brain neurons. So we literally have found people with head trauma, a combination of hyperbaric oxygen, potentially red light therapy, and this peptide dihexa, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and they're growing new neurons. This is unbelievable. Again, a playground, like you're in the sandbox with new toys for us practitioners. And it's important for you as patients, humans that are sovereign in your own health, to go in asking and searching for this because it's not in the mainstream information. Your practitioner may not know about it. It's not that they don't believe in it. We weren't trained in this. Plus, it may be harder to get your hands on it. You may have to kind of work around it a little bit. But anything from a history of brain trauma to skin problems to a chronic tendinitis to issues, like I said, with your gut that's not responding to supplements, peptides might be the answer you're looking for. And in a separate video, I'm going to go into the peptides that are the rage right now, which are the GLP-1 agonists. So things like semaglutide, tirzepatide. Interestingly, they are prescription drugs as Ozempic and Mounjaro, and they are still considered peptides. So those are a case where a pharmaceutical company took a peptide that was helping to restore cell-to-cell communication, got it in a form that was able to get a patent and use it as a drug. Those can also be compounded. We're seeing pretty remarkable success with this class of peptides because, as in most peptides, it has many different impacts. Like it works on restoring insulin and glucose regulation, but it's also anti-inflammatory. It's protective of your heart and your brain, and it may even help slow aging. So stay tuned for that video. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I love when I get to sit down with you, go a little bit deeper on topics that I'm passionate about. See you next time.